This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you like underground music, movies, and more, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed merch, vinyl, CDs, and more. Plug in the discount code 10OFF, TENOFF, for a 10% discount at portlanddistro.com. Hey guys, thanks for listening. This week I'd like to welcome John LaMacchia, a friend of mine. He's been putting in work in and around New York City for quite a long time. Most notably, John was in New York City progressive metal hardcore band Candiria, which I'm sure all you guys know about. They've toured the world, put out many records, and since then, John has been very active, first with Spylacopa. He's been DJing, a bunch of other projects, and now he has a brand new solo record, LaMacchia, called Thunderheads, that is getting ready to drop on May 20th on Aqualamb Records. We talk about that, we talk about the creative process, and a bunch of other cool stuff. Before we get going, I'd like to thank everyone who has joined our Patreon. It's been a lot of fun. I'm humbled by the amount of people that care enough to join that. And we're just getting started, so looking forward to keeping things rolling. Also, I'd like to thank some other podcasts. We've all been creating this community. I really, really think it's a cool, organic thing. And I'd like to thank Into the Necrosphere, Horror Wolf Podcast, and most recently, Iblis Manifestation, which is Cheyenne from Trivax's occult, spirituality, black metal, a bunch of cool stuff. It's a brand new show that he put out. So I urge you guys to check him out too. John, thanks a lot for taking time out to talk to me about, primarily about the new record, man. I was on social media one day, kind of mindlessly scrolling around, and I saw that you were working on new music, and it was in a band format. So
Right.
so I'm real excited. Is the record actually out? Because I know I have a copy to listen to, but is it actually released yet?
No, it'll actually come out on May 20th. It's just been a great journey so far. I mean, I can't be, I couldn't be happier. The fact that I have like these, the folks from Aqualamb stepped up and they expressed interest a while back. And, I'm very happy to be working with them. They're so hands-on and they're so, involved in everything that happens. It's a really nice change, like I've never been assigned to a label where everything is just so everything is discussed to the detail. And it's not to say that everything is done perfectly. We obviously have to improvise when things change and stuff like that. But it's like everything is really planned very well with these guys, and they have so much enthusiasm about the records they put out and what they do. And I'm just I feel very lucky to have them hear these songs and just think like, yeah, we want to put this out. It's been a fun journey, and to have my friends also step up. Mike MacGyver from Candiria is, he's not only is he on the record, but he also is my number one guy, basically, when it comes to playing live. He's always been in my life in one way or another as far as music goes. And to have him along for the journey, it wouldn't be the same without him. And then I have Andrea Horn, who was in the band Voreen, someone I have a great amount of respect for as far as her songwriting abilities and her sort of her knack for creating incredible guitar sounds, and then some. Like, she has a great ear for production. To have her along to do take on all the vocal duties, for all the female vocalists that I had enlisted to be a part of the album. She does all of the stuff live, so I just feel really great to have all these people step up and be a part of it. It's been a great journey so far.
Yeah, I spent some time with the record and did a little bit of reading, a little background about
Cool.
The formation and everything. And you do definitely have a pretty excellent lineup of people. I mean, you got Kelly Scott from Failure playing drums.
Yeah. Oh my God, how cool.
Yeah, you mentioned Mike. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mario Quintaro from Spotlights. That's a great band member to have as well.
Sure, man. He was key to this whole thing. He Mainly I hired him really to mix, but he just started adding sounds to songs and started adding layers here and there. And what am I going to say? No, the guy's just like, he's not only is he mixing it for me, but he's enjoying the song so much that he wants to participate in the sonic landscape and stuff. So I'm so pleased to have him involved. And honestly, the songs are what they are. But just as much as most know that have been doing this long enough, that the songs can be great, but if you put them in the hands of the wrong mix engineer, or you have the wrong production, the wrong type of production, it could be detrimental to the songs.
Yeah, that's there's so many things that can go wrong in production. And actually,
Yep.
wasn't there another female vocalist on the record too?
There's three
There's
total.
three, right? Total. So
There's three. Yeah. There's Andrea Horn sings backup vocals on one song. It would have been two, but we didn't finish the song in time to make it onto the record. Then there's Sabrina Ellie, who I've been working with for many, many years on all kinds of music projects. I worked with her in my band Crooked Man. She did some songs on some of the Spylacopa records that I did. And basically what wound up happening was this was going to be another Spylacopa record. It was really, I was just, making a record, but then, Chris Enriquez, who's been amazing to me, he started managing me, and he started talking to people about it, trying to feel around to see what kind of moves he could make for me, to see if he can get me involved with a publishing company or find a record deal for me. And he had a conversation with Rob Gross. You know that guy, I'm sure you know him.
Yeah, I know. I don't know him well, but I know who
Right,
he is.
right, exactly. So Rob Gross, I know he's a big Candiria fan, but he also has been following all the solo stuff that I've done. And he mentioned to Chris, he said, honestly, I'm so glad that John is making another record, but I think it's time for him to really start thinking about rebranding and coming up with a new way to present it. And honestly, at first, I wasn't offended, but I was almost like, when you're just uncomfortable with somebody's suggestion, it just doesn't sit well with you.
Sure.
And so I kind of had that kind of reaction. But the more we spoke about it, the more I realized it was the best possible thing that I could do. And then the label started talking about it, and they were like, look, your name is just really, it carries weight in some circles, and it's time to start using your name, just your name, cut through the noise, forget all these projects, forget all these other bands. And once I was convinced of it, I was just so glad that came up, and I'm really grateful for Rob's foresight into knowing that would be like a really, really great thing for this record, because I think that's just the thing. It's like, it really was time for me to break away from these old names that I've been using, because I couldn't mention any new music that I was doing without, Greg Puciato's name coming up, or, the guys from ISIS, or this or that. And I was just tired of that. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't worked with Greg in a very, very long time. We're still great friends and all, but we just don't work together anymore. And I was tired of that kind of, every time my name comes up, his comes up. I just wanted to, sort of make it very clear that this is my music, and I'm sort of producing it and like bringing people along, and I'm really shaping everything, and I'm writing songs, and it's really just a very singular sort of voice. And once again, man, I'm super psyched that we made that decision, because the response, I think, has been so awesome, and I'm so glad people are just interested in checking it out. I really am.
Yeah, I think it's a strong move, man. I mean, it in a way, it kind of harkens back to like some of our favorite hard rock artists, such as Van Halen and the Rollins Band and stuff like that. It's like very much, okay, this is my thing. It's making a statement, and also that name most likely is not taken. Like, I don't think there's any other bands called LaMacchia out there.
Yeah, that was another thing. There is an artist he's a sculptor, but he happens to also be my cousin. Um, and it's true. And he goes by John LaMacchia. It's so weird because I just discovered him one day on Instagram, obviously, of course. And I saw his sculptures and I was like, "Whoa, this guy's name's John LaMacchia too." And I reached out and it turns out we are related. We're cousins.
That's
So,
insane, man.
yeah, I know. It's very cool, man. I kind of wanted to see if I could do a thing with him. Like, hey, let's talk, like you're an artist, I'm an artist. We're both LaMacchias. We're both family. We're both Johns, like maybe we could do something. But you know how it is. Throw it on the pile of 1,000 other things I have lined up.
Is he based in New York as well or somewhere else?
He's in Jersey. He's like right over the bridge,
Oh,
so
cool.
he's not far off. Yeah, I highly recommend. Like, take a look at his art. It's really interesting. He's got his art is really beautiful. He does a lot of sculptures. He does some painting. I'm not sure if it's oil or acrylic or whatever, but his art. The thing that I really appreciated about the most is that he always has there's some kind of like humor in it, or like sarcasm, or like dark, like a dark, like a splash of like comedy, but really dark comedy, which I really appreciate.
Right.
So yeah, I would recommend checking him out. It's cool stuff.
So you mentioned this was initially intended to be a potential Spylacopa record. So now, what's the time frame that we're looking at? Did you start writing this material like a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? So what's the process been like assembling this whole thing?
Well, was really an interesting journey how I wound up here, because it actually started with Frank Godla before the pandemic. I'd say about a year before the pandemic. He approached me and he started putting this idea in my brain that I should be taking my solo music way more serious, and he's like, why aren't you performing your songs? Like, you're a really talented artist. And he goes, it's great to see that you're active with Candiria, but he goes, why aren't you singing? You're out singing your songs and playing your songs and focusing on that stuff. So he kind of got in my brain, and he was like, I want to be in your band. And he was like, I'm playing drums for you. And he just started pushing me. And one thing led to another. And I'm in a studio with Frank Godla and we're working on stuff. And then I reach out to Mike MacGyver, and Mike MacGyver's down to jam with Frank. Frank is a really great guy. Mike is always down to jam. So that was an easy thing. And at the time, Sabrina Ellie was still living in New York. And she was also, we always worked together. We worked on songs up until recently, and we've been great friends for a very long time. So all of a sudden I had a band, and we started working together. I put out a cover of Baby Bitch by Ween. I think that's the first thing we did together that actually was a recording. And it went really well, and we put it out into the world, and we raised a little bit of money for some I forget what cause. But it was related to the protests and everything.
Right.
But that's really where it started. That's where it started. It started with Frank, and I'd say it was probably about 2018 or 2019. And
At this point, though,
then,
it wasn't quite the LaMacchia moniker, though. It was like you were operating with a
no,
different name, right?
right. It was still Spylacopa.
Okay.
I was still using that name. And I even, at that point, I suggested to Frank that I wanted to change it. And he said, no, don't do it, man. I love the name. I love your history. So he kind of had the, sort of like the complete opposite take. And I was like, okay, if you think it's cool and Mike thinks it's cool and nobody thinks we need to change anything, let's just continue on. And then, unfortunately, I don't want to get into too much of Frank's personal stuff, but he had his father got very, very sick, and he was sick, and it was just a really hard time. And Frank was just going through a really, really difficult time with his family. And then the pandemic started happening, and it was so much. And then he just couldn't dedicate the time, and what he was going through was just so intense for him. He just had to kind of like walk away from it. And then I was stuck, because now I was writing these songs. I started, dabbling with songwriting, and now my drummer walked away. So that's when it kind of became this sort of nebulous sort of thing that just wasn't settled yet. I wasn't even certain what was going to happen. And then that's around the time Chris Enriquez came along, and he was like, I want to manage you. I want to help you find a deal and all of that stuff. And then that's about the same time Aqualamb came along. And slowly but surely I was writing songs knowing that I was going to put out a record. I already had one in a can, and I just started working on all of these demos that I had created over the past few years. And then over the pandemic, I started writing like a lot. I started writing. Obviously, you have so much time on your hands. You're experiencing something so unique that how do you not write about it? You know what I mean? How do you not, if you're an artist, how do you not then take that opportunity and create something? So that was kind of the start of it. And then it turned into something that, means something completely different to me now, that has a completely different name. And I'm super fucking psyched about it. I'm so thrilled,
With Frank leaving like that's almost like this weird narrative almost. You know what I mean? Where
Mm-hmm.
that he was the one person who wanted to stick with the name, and
Right.
you had this instinct maybe to move beyond that. And
Right.
when he moved out of the working situation, it kind of set you up to do whatever. And I think that's pretty awesome, actually.
It really did. And I think in when he first walked away, I was like, well, now what the hell am I going to do? You know what I mean? It felt like that. Like, how am I going to figure this out now? And then, I don't know, just I started jamming just with Mike MacGyver in a room with just like drum machine beats that I wrote for songs. And we started fleshing things out. And then I started spending a lot of time with someone I'm very close to, this girl, Candice Freshco, who also sings and co-wrote a song with me on the album, and also worked on the closing album. She does a spoken word for it. And this person is like, I just love this person so much. She's an incredibly talented person. She's super cool. We've always had a great relationship. And throughout the years, we've always worked on like art projects together, either shooting a music video or doing this or some kind of crazy photo shoot. So we're just like these, creative buddies, And so I had this sort of weird unit of people that I was working with, but they sort of, because of the pandemic, everyone was so separated. So
were you working by yourself? Like when you're writing all this material, once the pandemic hit, did you just kind of hole up alone and just kind of work on this material without other people, or were you sharing files, or what was the process like during that?
It was a lot of me working alone to really shape basically the entire album. But when it came time for Mike to step in, Mike recorded all the bass by himself at home. He had a kid, and everyone's world was scary, and everyone was doing their best to distance themselves from each other and not expose themselves. So it just made sense for me to send Mike files and him record his bass alone. So he did that by himself. I think Sabrina recorded vocals for one song by herself, and then I think later on, like once everybody kind of was like, okay, this is a pandemic and it's not going anywhere, she came into Brooklyn, I think once or twice, to track vocals for another song or two. And then Gabe, this guy Gabe, I can't pronounce his last name. It's like Gabe Vebesterschen or something like that. This guy Gabe recorded all of Kelly Scott's drums in LA.
Okay.
So it was just it was a really like, for the most part, it was a really focused experience because I was working a lot by myself. But then I was sending files to people and they were participating. And it just really, truly came together when Mario jumped on board and started mixing things. And I could hear that the sounds that I was sending him were to his satisfaction as far as like making a good mix goes. And it just started really, really, really coming together. And the sort of the album, the full view of the album, or the big picture, so to speak, kind of became clearer and clearer. The more that I got done, So yeah, man, and that took us to mastering, and then onto Aqualamb getting a hold of it, and us discussing artwork and what we're going to do with it, and then eventually leading into us performing, which we performed our first show in early March, and it was like a sold out show with spotlights and shiner, and you really can't ask for more than that.
Oh, congratulations, man! Was that
Thank
in New
you.
York City or somewhere else? Or
Yeah, that was I was at Elsewhere in Brooklyn.
oh, I haven't been there yet. I hear a lot of good things about that venue.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool place, and the staff is great. We played Zone One, which is like, I don't know. I mean, I would compare it to like, I don't know. You remember Knitting Factory on the second one that was on between like Church and Broadway?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That room, the main room, it was like that size. I'd say like,
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know, 300 cap or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like the perfect size room for us to play. We had a blast. We had a great response, and now I got another one coming up on Easter Sunday at Union Pool.
That's a nice
So
spot. I like. It's small, but it's cool. I just remember playing shows there years ago. The place is pretty cool.
yeah, it's funny because Union Pool is one of the only venues that I've always wanted to play, but for some reason or another, it's always eluded me. You know what I mean? Like every time I go to that place, I'm like, man, I love this fucking venue, and I've seen all my friends play there, and I've seen like a lot of really great shows there, and so I'm really, really happy to be playing there finally. And it's actually going to be like an Aqualamb Records presents type of deal, where it's like 4 Aqualamb bands: Frail, my band LaMacchia, Burning Tongue, and then the guitar player and solo artist Zeb Gould will be opening up the show, who is a fucking phenomenal player, man. He's such a great guitar player and songwriter. He's fantastic. So yeah, it should be a fun time.
Now, the record was produced with everyone in different places. It seems like without actually being in a space. So, what was it like once you translated? What was rehearsing like, getting ready for that show, and then finally going on stage and actualizing this project that you've been working on remotely with all these different people?
It's a great question you asked, man, because if I'm going to be totally honest, it was a very, very, how can I say it? It was a very stressful
Yeah.
learning experience. Like figuring out, first of all, building my voice up to perform live, because, recording, recording and then going and actually trying to do it over and over again and perfect it live is a completely different thing, And I had to get my ear trained to hear pitch properly again. Like I hadn't actually sung live in quite some time. So the whole process was really, really stressful, and I was filled with a lot of like uncertainty. I am kind of like I don't know what you would call that. I don't know what type of person is that's like always like doubting themselves. Like I struggle with self-doubt a lot. I really do. And it took until we played the show, like it took all that time until I got on stage and played the show, and I was like, hey, you know what? That wasn't fucking bad. And then I felt like confident, because people were responding positively. They were like, look, you sounded great. And I'm like, what is it? Okay. Was it all right? I think the most challenging thing too was there's electronic music on the record.
Right.
There's like a few electronic songs. There's all these beats and stuff, and it was just like figuring out how to be a rock band and then all of a sudden become a band that does like electronic music as well. And it took a little bit of time. It really did take a little bit of time to sort of have the sort of the right equipment first and foremost, and how to be able to sort of make the set a way so that you don't lose any power once the live band goes away, because the live band is like, it's a lot more bombastic, and the electronic music is way more sort of focused and tight,
Right.
so you obviously lose that airiness of musicians actually playing in a room. But with the band and like playing them the songs, they're starting to incorporate like the live instruments as well. So it's turning into this really cool thing that's just happening organically. And I think the thing is, with me, the biggest takeaway from all of this is stop being so fucking negative all the time.
It's hard to do, man. I mean, people say that,
Yeah.
but anyone who does anything creative I mean, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in bands, so they understand that. But people that don't necessarily understand that, that's like a special thing to do, man, to put yourself out there in front of people. And, and it's so easy. I mean, think about all the things that people try to do in their lives and they don't actually get to it because of the self-doubt and the resistance and all this kind of stuff. So that's a huge, huge, obstacle to overcome, really.
Yeah, it really is. And, but I started to, I started to catch myself when I was sort of being negative. And then I started to analyze all of these thoughts in my head. Like I would have these thoughts that I was going to step on stage and trip over something and like fall flat on my face, which has happened to me before. So it's not like an irrational fear. I've done that. So, but like those thoughts are like, they're not completely ridiculous, but I started to analyze those thoughts and just sort of put them in their place, being like, yeah, there's a chance it's going to happen, but it's fucking really slim. And if it happens, it's not going to be the end of the world. You get back up, you knock the dust off and you fucking play a set and you just make up for it somehow. So I started to really check myself which was a really important part of this process because it's not that I believe that an artist has to have a certain amount of ego, but they definitely do have to have confidence in order to deliver, the music or deliver the song, confidence is definitely something that I'm slowly starting to really, I feel really good about performing now. Whereas in the beginning of this, I questioned myself constantly, but now I feel like, hey man, you know what? I can sing, I can do okay. I can hold a tune. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the answer is what you just said basically. And, but what's great is now that first show is behind you now. And, that experience is something that you can carry into the next show,
Right. That's exactly it. And now I feel like, I'm really focused on I really want the shows to be a really great experience, not just me getting on stage and getting through the songs, but I want them to be like these experiences that people walk away and obviously not only feel like, oh, that was really great or that was really cool or I like that, but I want to start doing some really fun stuff live. I mean, you heard the record. There's a lot of like heart heavy songs on it.
Yes, absolutely.
There are some bright moments. And I think when those bright moments happen, I kind of want to really have some fun with it. So I have some things planned for the Easter Sunday show. For anyone who wants to come out, there's going to be some fun stuff. And there might even be some prizes and giveaways. So, I'm trying to make this fun, man,
Now, that sounds awesome, man. And it's at a cool venue too. And any of you guys out there who are in the tri-state area, the what the hell is it called again? Union Pool. I was just talking about how cool of a venue it was. Now I can't even remember. Yeah, Union Pool. Great venue. I've got a lot of great memories playing there. It's small, so if you want to go to this show, you better get there early. You know what I mean? This place definitely fills up.
Yep, it surely does. And the coolest thing I think that I'm looking forward to is hopefully at that point we have some decent weather that you can enjoy both the show and then step outside and kind of spring is just starting to really set in. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it, and I'm looking forward to sort of just getting there and like enjoying the venue. And I think, you know what, don't be so hard on yourself about not remembering the damn name of the place. We are so fortunate to have so many great venues in this city, man. I mean, there's a new one every fucking 3 weeks. I swear to God, every time I go on the internet, I'm like, what is this place now? The Broadway? Transpicos? I mean, I think Transpicos has been around a minute.
Yeah, it's been around for a little bit. Yeah. But I know what you're saying, man. There's like all these spots, like it fortunately seem to pop up, and now it's back to the way. I feel like back to the way when CB's was around. It seemed like there was a lot of venues. Like this is going back, a long time for some of these guys here listen. But like, we got Union Pool's been around for a while. There's this Elseworlds, that's a place I haven't been to yet, which I keep hearing
Yeah.
about. On the larger
Right.
side, there's Brooklyn Steel, which I just saw a
Yep.
show there a few weeks ago, and that's a
Yeah.
first for me. So it's
Right.
cool because you hear about all the doom and gloom about live music venues closing during the pandemic and this and that, and I feel
Right.
like New York is actually in pretty good shape right now.
Sure. Absolutely. I actually just went to a new place, which is further south in Brooklyn, which I'm happy to see in Gowanus, a place called Zero Space.
Oh.
And it's really, really cool, man. I mean, they did their first live show, and it was forget who opened up, but the main acts was Quicksand and Battles.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
it was a great night. It was a great experience. I saw so many people I knew there. Couldn't believe it. Like, I was just standing in the middle of the room, and I was like, I cannot believe how many of my friends are here. I mean, not super surprising. It's Quicksand, so you know what I mean. They're a New York band, and also, but yeah, Zero Space is another brand new venue, a really pretty large venue. I would say probably like the actual room where the bands perform. I'd say like like an Irving Plaza,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
So like that size,
Like
minus the
1,100 or
balcony.
something like that, 1,200 people, something.
Yeah, but more floor space, no balcony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a really great space, and a really cool vibe to it. Like, you walk in and there's all these like projections all over the place, and like video projections, and like vendors and food vendors. I think they had a pizzeria
Oh
like right
wow.
outside the door. They had Roberta's had like a little pop-up outside the door. Inside they were serving like tacos and like all kinds of cool stuff, and just a really cool vibe, and a lot of fun. So yeah, man, it's just been wild. The one thing about that place, Zero Space, is they're going to upgrade their sound system, because it just wasn't. The place is big enough where it needs line arrays, it needs like delays in it, it needs like a proper sound system. But even though it was, maybe not the best sound considering the size of the space, the bands really brought their A game, and they sounded fantastic anyway.
It's funny when you mention fun, right? And just mentioning the food pop-ups at the venue, and it reminds me of how long it's been since there's been that lightness of mood, you know?
Yeah,
And
sure.
it's yeah, because like I just really started going out like a few months ago, and just seeing people out, like going to a lot of shows and doing stuff socially, and you
Yeah.
forget almost how much your life has been altered over the last couple of years. So it's really cool to be going out and doing stuff again.
Yeah, man. I mean, it really is. And it was one of the first shows I went to where I felt like people were really a little bit more relaxed. And it's like, you know, are we out of the woods yet? I don't know for sure. I mean, I can't, no one knows really what's going to happen next, but in that moment, it was nice to feel a little bit more laid back, you know. I still, try to be safe as often as I can, or whenever I feel, I just, throw the mask on. If I feel like I'm close to someone I don't know, or maybe they sound a little sick, I do try to be a little bit mindful. I think we all do. I think it's now just in our DNA. Um, but it it really is. It's definitely a nice thing to go out and go to a venue and not be so sort of I don't know, pensive or sort of skeptical about what you're doing, and be a little bit more relaxed and have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, totally. Now let me ask you about the live band. Is it's your thing. It's your band. It's an
Right.
effort that's associated with you individually. Do you expect the lineup to remain consistent, or for any period of time, or what's the intent with that?
Well, I mean, right now the band that I have is Mike McGyver. Like I mentioned, Andrea Horn is playing guitar and doing vocals, and I have this guy Jeff Gensterblom, who plays with this band, the Twin, and another band called Savak. I think that's how you pronounce it, either Savick or Savak. Um, and look, I know Mike he's along for the ride. He's ready to do this. Andrea is another one. She's ready to go. And as far as I know, Jeff is the newest addition to the band. He seems to be very happy to play this music. he seems to really be happy to show up and hang with Mike and Andrea and me, and like we all get along really, really well. And my intention is to keep this band together. You know, that said, life happens. You never know. People move away, people do things, but in the end of the day, I think no matter what happens, I'm going to perform in some way, shape, or form. You know, like I actually intend on doing some solo shows by myself. I want to be able to entertain a crowd by myself. That's been like a goal of mine for a very long time, to be able to be a captivating enough entertainer to, you know, be booked and perform by myself. And so I mean, I do see this lineup being like the lineup. I really do feel that in my heart, that I have the right people with me. But that said, if it changes, I will adapt. You know, I'll definitely adapt if I have to.
That's awesome, man. Now, let me ask you a question about the solo performances. I mean, back in the old days, that meant sitting there with like an acoustic guitar. But these
Right.
days, now, with all this wonderful technology we have,
Yeah.
what would a solo show look like to you?
I think it would be really, really sort of a wide spectrum of different sounds, because there are songs in the record that are, you know, I wrote a lot of this stuff sitting at home in my house. So, you know, with an acoustic guitar next to my couch the whole damn pandemic. So there are some acoustic songs in the record that I do feel, and there's even like acoustic songs with some electronic stuff in it as well. So I do feel that like it will be a combination of acoustic instruments and you know, electronic sounds, and maybe even distorted guitars. But I'm at a point right now where I'm so focused on getting the band tuned in to playing a headlining show eventually, that is sort of like something that's in my mind, but I haven't totally put the pieces together, so I can't really tell you exactly what it looks like. But I will say that if it's anything like what I used to do, I used to do these like DJ sets, and they were more than just DJ sets. I wasn't just playing music, I was actually performing as well. So I would love to incorporate something like that with the music, and then doing some of the songs, you know, you know what I mean? Like somehow make it more of this like experience, you know, and incorporate, you know, visuals, you know, and do some really fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, I hope that gives you some of an idea of what my solo stuff might look like.
That's kind of what I suspected, you know, knowing
Hmm.
a little bit about like your background and the other stuff that you were doing. And I saw you perform one time. It was an art gallery somewhere. I want to say it was near like Court Street or something like that. And it was some people that I know were showing art there, and you were there, you know, performing. And I was like, when you said
Oh.
solo, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, John probably is not going to just sit there with acoustic guitar, though that might be
Hmm.
part of the you know, part of the whole activity. But I just had
Right,
this idea of you doing a little bit more than that.
right. Do you remember what I was I playing guitar, or was I
Yeah, you
doing
were
like
playing guitar. There was some other
with?
stuff going on. It was just, I think it was just you.
It was just me.
Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, do you remember when that was?
Oh, dude, this had to have been probably 2015, 2016.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
All
because
right. Wow.
Fade Kaner had a
Oh,
piece.
oh, that's right. And was it in a church?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what. And I wasn't alone. My buddy Joe was playing bass. That was
Ah,
a
okay.
like this project I had. I was doing with my buddy Joe for a minute, and it was called. At first, it was called Tree of Death, and then it was called Mourn. So I think you saw Mourn,
Okay.
and it's just guitar, and he played bass, and that's all we did. There was no samples. It was just two instruments, and it was like inspired by groups like Earth and Boran and the Club of Gore. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that
Yeah,
group.
of course. Yeah, that
Yeah,
the band's awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
Boran is
one of
fucking
our
insane.
mutual friend Jeff Kashid's favorite bands, apparently.
Oh yeah. Of course, there you go. There's the connection. That's how I learned about him.
Yep.
Um, yeah, great stuff. So it was inspired by some of that stuff. It was like inspired by like some older psychedelic bands, but then more so like the bands like Earth and Boran. But yeah, I mean, that was a really, really fun time. Once again, that girl, Candice Fresco, that sings one of the songs on the record and also was really a huge part of it, artistically, like the art aspect of it. She's a big part of that as well. She had a piece in that show as well, and she knows Fade.
Yeah, Fade's one of those guys that everyone in New York knows that guy in one shape or form,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, and he also, I think she was in one of his videos, one of the maybe Batilis.
Or maybe the Static Bloom stuff that he's doing.
No, I think it was older. It
Okay.
might have been the Batilis stuff
Okay. Yeah,
because,
probably. Yeah.
but I'm not certain. But that's what comes to mind because when I started working with Candace again, and we started talking about this art project that we were working on, that actually turned into a song that wound up being on the record. Um, took on this completely different life. In the beginning, we were talking about doing music. You remember? There was this thing that was happening. I forget. Oh man, why can't I remember his name in this fucking moment? I'm an idiot. Um, oh God, I can't remember his name. Anyway, him and his lady, who I can't remember either at the top of my head, but I know them so damn well. And when I say this, you're gonna know too. Monomer TV. Did you
Yeah.
see that? What that was? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we were, I'm friends with those folks that put that show together. And they hit me up and they're like, "Hey, man, we're doing this thing. We know you make videos and you do art stuff and you make music. If you ever want to contribute, just send it our way and we'll include it in the episodes." And I watched the Monomer TV episodes and I was like blown away. I loved it. It was everything that I love in visuals and sound. So Candace knows, I forget her damn name. I feel so terrible that I can't remember their names off the top of my head. But Candace knew someone who was working on Monomer TV, and I also knew someone, so it was a no-brainer for me and her to work on something visually and sonically to contribute.
I didn't know that you
So
had a whole other aspect of. I didn't know that you were involved in the visual stuff too.
yeah, I mean, you know how it is, man. It's
Yeah.
like, you have to be able to create. If you can create it on your own, and you can do something that is really good or decent. A lot of people, a lot of bands are shooting their own videos now. I mean, nobody, there's no money in this, so it's like, figure it out. So I started shooting years ago. My dad gave me a film camera, a 35 millimeter camera, and that was my introduction to actually shooting and photography. I'm a novice compared to most, but I still had a sort of a love for it. And then eventually throughout the years, when it came time to me to, like, when I started working on solo stuff, I was like, you know what? I need to learn how to make videos because I can't. First of all, I wanted to. I really loved, I'm a huge film fan, as yourself, and like, forget it. I mean, I can, that's pretty much how I, experience. That's my favorite sort of medium, to experience art is film. So I wanted to learn how to edit. I wanted to learn how to shoot. And I had, music to make music videos with. So I did. I became interested in it some years ago, and I started making videos for Spylacopa. And I'd say I made my first one in like 2016. So since then, I've been editing and filming and making videos for friends, and working on all kinds of projects like that.
That's awesome, man. So are you
Yeah.
using like Premiere and all that kind of stuff that, these like,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
mainly it. I mainly use Premiere. I use Premiere. I shoot on a T2i. Well, I have been shooting on a Canon T2i, and I have like some really nice vintage lenses that I use, and that's been the vibe. I've been sort of like, there's a couple of videos. Actually, the Bled Out video, the brand new video just came out. That was shot. Holy shit! That was shot on a Canon T2i, and then I think what else was shot on that? There's going to be another video. Oh, the Angels of Light video that Candace is in. The next video that's coming out, we shot that on the T2i as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we were able to accomplish a lot. And quite honestly, before this album cycle began, and I was like, well, I know I'm going to need to shoot video. I think it's time to upgrade. And I started doing some research, and the more I read about what's out there and what the options are within my budget, the more I realized I could accomplish everything I wanted to accomplish with my camera. I just had to get some accessories like a gimbal and like, all kinds of, there was all other, these other components I needed to add to my setup in order to make it work. And I did, and I've done pretty well. But then recently I did a video shoot, which was on another level, which was on like a pro level. And, I am just, that's it. Like the bar has been raised. So I don't think I'll be using my T2i to shoot any more videos now that I've seen what the possibilities truly are. So, but that's something that's going to be coming out in May. And, maybe I'll just keep a lid on that for now, because I don't know, the label might, I don't know how these things work really.
Yeah, no, they like to announce stuff on their own,
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So this episode probably is going to come out right before this your show, man. So that could be a way to
Awesome.
kind of hype it up a little bit,
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much, man. By the way, man, I love the fact that you're such an active sort of artist and basically a modern day journalist, basically, discussing, horror and interviewing people and doing the research. It's basically, it's like it is obviously a form of journalism, or you have to know who you're interviewing, you have to do all the research. So it's like, it's really cool to see so many people and you specifically being so active and so sort of going with the flow with the way things have changed in the world in the last however many years. So it's pretty cool to finally do this and have a conversation with you, because I know that there was a few times we were going to do this, but it just never sort of worked out.
Yeah, this is the good time though, I think, right now to talk, because especially with
Yeah.
this brand new chapter in your career, this is pretty awesome. The one thing I want to talk about, it's really funny, is like I was remembering that night completely different. Like I have a visual, you know what I mean? It's just about the human mind right now, about how our brains fill in the blanks sometimes, and they create like a completely alternative past that's not true. Because I visualized you by yourself, performing that night with a completely different format, totally different than what actually happened.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
Wow. I mean, they say that, like, although we rely on personal account, so much when it comes to sort of like, trials and all these super important things, like, and then people, make these decisions based on people's personal accounts. But you're right. The sort of our memory is really not, it's really truly not to be trusted that much as, well, I'll say it's not to be as trusted as we sort of, how much we put into, like how much we rely on it. And we really have to be careful there, because we do kind of create this sort of like alternate reality, or this like sort of false sort of memory, basically. So that is interesting, but I can totally relate to that, because I do that all the time. Like I remember something a certain way, and it's usually my bass player Mike who reminds me of how it really went down.
No, it's trippy.
He'll be like, he'll be like, no, that was in 1998, and we were on tour with Neurosis, and you were playing this guitar, and I was like, dude, how the fuck do you remember this shit? Like, how do you know my life more than I know my own life? It's kind of funny.
Is Candiria still active, like on some level at least?
No. The straight answer is no. We're not active as a band, but the band is, there's these things about the history of the band that just keep coming up, so there is activity. It's just not anything sort of like, nothing really new is happening. I actually, me and Mike worked with Ken, our old drummer Ken, for a minute there, and we were talking about putting out some fusion style music, but we started working on it, and then slowly just like fell to pieces, and he stopped working on it, and we were like, all right, I guess that's that, so, but at this point there's really nothing going on. But not retroactively, I'm trying to get all of the albums that have never been released on vinyl. I'm trying to get those out on vinyl. I'm trying to get everything. I'm trying to keep up with the formats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Simply because there are new people out there all the time searching for new music, and you'd be so surprised how many new people are discovering Candiria all the time. It's crazy. I don't even know how. Like, I go on Spotify, I'm like 20,000 listeners a month. Who the hell are these people? And I'm like, how does it keep growing? Like, what is happening? But it's a cool thing. I'm not complaining. It's awesome, to know that there's, even though we're a completely inactive band, that there's still this, this cult following that sort of just keeps hanging around. And it's really for them that I want to make these things happen. Like I want to get certain things out into the world in certain formats because they make these requests. If I could tell you how many times people are like, when are you going to put these albums out on vinyl? It's crazy. And so that's really that's the long answer. But the short answer is no, we're not really we're not an active band. This is as close as you're going to get to Candiria is what I'm doing, which is a far cry from it.
I was just going to say this is very, very different, very, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. But I do hope that some of the Candiria fans do come along for the ride. I mean, what we put on the records throughout the years has always been a very vast sort of broad, as we did some electronic music, we did some straight up like modern jazz type stuff, we did some swing, we did some like bebop and some hip hop, and we did all kinds of stuff. So I'm pretty certain there will be a small percentage of the Candiria crowd will come along for the ride, just because they're open-minded people. You kind of have to be open-minded to be into Candiria as it is.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on that. I always found that the Candiria fans, Candiria was kind of like a thinking man's like metallic hardcore band.
Right.
Like there's
man.
a lot of different influences involved in that band.
Yeah. I was just actually talking about this with someone else, and they were like, how the hell, who did this and who did this and who was the guy who did all the hip hop? I was like, well, it's really not that simple. You had the people that were, in the band that were like, Ken was the real like jazz head. He was the one who was like all about incorporating jazz, and anytime it felt right, he was like so happy to be, writing some piece of music and playing some keys and stuff like that. But it's not to say that every single member of the band wasn't into or didn't grow up on some form of jazz, whether it be fusion, whether it be, bebop or whatever, big band or whatever it was that, all the people in the band, sort of grew up on or loved as a musician growing up. We all did have like this fascination with the genre. Hip hop as well. I mean, how do you live in New York City and not have that in your DNA in some way, shape, or form? Like even freestyle. I think about this all the time. Like, freestyle is a music that when I was a kid, the thing to do was to fucking go to a block party and dance. And, I was a kid, so I did. And I danced to like all this freestyle music. So when I hear freestyle and I hear like Diamond Girl or Set It Off or whoever these people are, I can't help but be like, hey, you know what? I'm uncomfortably familiar with this song.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what it is. It's just like we were like these young kids that were just open-minded enough to just understand that, like, even though freestyle is very different than black metal, or black metal is very different than jazz and all of these things, there's still, if it's, I forget what it is, it's 12 notes in Western music, including flats and sharps. It's all the same thing if you really, really hone in on it. Yeah, that said, I'm happy that that over the years we've maintained this reputation to sort of be such an inspiration to many young bands who then went on to, incorporate different styles of music. And not that we were the first to do it. I mean, you had Bungle, you had all these other bands doing stuff like that. But I'm glad that we get some credit for it.
Oh, no doubt, man. Definitely. Our mutual friend, Jeff Kashid, who is also a co-host of mine on my other horror podcast, Necromaniacs.
Right.
His solo record is now finally seeing the vinyl pressing, and I believe that you had something to do with producing that record.
Yes. I don't think I would go as far as saying I get a producer's credit, but I would, unless I'm wrong, maybe I do. I don't think so. I think it was Aaron Harris and Jeff who get the producer's credits, but I do get an engineer credit.
Okay.
I know Jeff a very long time.
Yes.
I met him on the road, when Candiria was touring with ISIS, and me and Jeff just became very, very good friends. It had not only, obviously we had a, I appreciate him as a musician and as a bass player a great deal, and I think that his respect for me was mutual enough for us to just start chatting about music and stuff. But it was, Jeff was moving to Queens at the time, and I forget what year this was. This was like 2006 or so, and he was moving to New York, and he was moving to Queens, and he's, he knows I've been here my whole damn life. So any questions he had, anytime I could help him out with, knowing this or knowing that, any real estate person I could put him in touch with, he knew he could count on me for stuff like that. But then him moving here, that just made it even that much easier for me and him to start hanging out. He was new here. He didn't know many people, so I brought him like Lucky 13 Saloon, and we would go see shows together, and we would do all kinds of cool shit together. And eventually, Jeff started playing in my group Spylacopa, and he played on some of the early material. But eventually, he proposed this idea about him doing this ambient album with going by the name of Crone. And he asked me if I would be so kind as to record some of the music for him. And I was like, dude, are you crazy? Hell fucking yeah. So, he came over one day to my house, and we set up some mics, and we plugged his bass in, and we did some cool shit. And we just spent literally 3 days recording, I don't know how many of the songs from the record, but a good amount of them. And not only did I engineer it, he also asked me to do some performances as well. So I got to do some performances on the record as well, and I'm super proud of it. I'm super proud that I'm a part of it. It's such a cool album. It's such a beautiful piece, like, you know what I mean? And I hope that he does more. I really do.
I keep trying to encourage him to do more stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I talk to him like pretty frequently these days.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, dude, you got to do more. Why? Like, you're by yourself.
Yep.
Like, you might as well just do it,
Yeah. I tell him all the time, dude. And it's not only that I'm telling him to do it because I think it would be like good for him or something. I'm telling him to do it because I want to hear more of his music, man. I truly am. I'm a fan, man. I really love his, there's something about like certain people, like I think Andrea Horn is similar in this way, where they understand like the concept of like a sonic palette better than most people do. They have like a sort of like a knack for the right sound and the right sort of mood. They know how to create like these atmospheres with music, and it's something that like I think I've gotten better over the years, but I'm not like Jeff is. Jeff is the type of guy who'll be like, he will let you know right off the bat that something is just not right for this piece of music, whatever. Like if I came up with an idea for something, he'd be like, no, that's not it. And he just knows, he has like this foresight. He may not know exactly what it needs to be, but he knows that it isn't this or that. And I'm getting closer and closer, or I'm getting further and further away. So yeah, I mean, I truly am. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of him as an artist. I really am. And I don't think it's a bad thing that he's sitting around doing nothing, because I think in his mind, there's something like stirring in there, and sort of it's gonna come to the surface, like he's not a prolific guy. Like the Crone record I don't think he's done any other solo music ever.
No, as far as I know, that's the only thing. I mean, he had Palms, which was
right.
That was like a band, it wasn't a solo effort, but yeah, that's all I know about, really.
Right, and he was in Red Sparrows.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was in that band as well. But yeah, so I obviously he's not. Maybe he will become a little bit more prolific, but I know there was a time where, especially like when ISIS finally ended, he just kind of I don't know. I mean, it was how it is. When you're in a band for so long, it's almost like it's part of your. It's not just something that you're a part of. It's sort of like it becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of your identity, and I think. When that all ended, they were such a huge band, and then to just like to call it quits. I mean, he really must have wanted to put his instrument down for a good time, and he certainly did. So, I mean, I'm right there with you, man. I try to talk to that guy, and I try to be like, hey, man, like I even sent him some music not too long ago, just to see if he would be interested in working on it. And he's like, nah, I'm good, man. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's our friend, man.
Oh yeah. And I'm glad he's doing the podcast. I mean, that made me really happy to see he started like co-hosting with you guys, because I think maybe he got a little lost there along the way. I mean, especially as far as the enjoying like being an artist or being a part of something that is like an artistic venture in any way, shape, or form, so I think it might be the type of thing that like that fills a little bit of a void for him to be part of this podcast. So I'm really happy that he is.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, man. And
Cool.
I just remember when we lived closer together, like we would just talk about movies all the time. So now might as well record those conversations.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that guy is like, man, he like, if anything, I always told him, I'm like, dude, why don't you start a blog or something? Why don't you become a film critic? This is all you do, bro. You watch so many fucking movies. But no, it's good that he has a way to talk about it and share and like be able to talk to you guys. I'm almost certain another mutual friend, obviously Mike Scandato.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Someone I kind of grew up playing music with. It's great. Like I also thought of like Mike and Jeff, because I'm not sure they knew each other prior to them working together on the podcast.
No, they still haven't ever actually met in person, believe it or not. Yeah.
It's hysterical.
Yeah.
That's funny. But I'm sure if they got together and they met and they started talking, they would enjoy like each other's conversation so much. I immediately thought, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. These three people together talking, this is fucking fantastic. So, it's awesome to know that you guys are doing something so cool for so long now. How many episodes are you in?
120 episodes right now.
Wow,
yeah.
It's a lot. I have a lot of catching up to do. I mean, I'm not the biggest podcast guy, and I have listened in, obviously, on the podcast, a few times, but it's not my favorite medium.
Sure.
But like, if I was to start, I'd have a lot of catching up to do.
Well, there's not all the episodes are good. I would stick with the more recent ones, really. I mean, you get better as you go along. So I would stick with the more recent material. But one of the things we're thinking about doing is putting out a book, actually, of the first 25 years of the new millennium in the most important horror films of the new millennium. Because, there's so many great things, changes, steps forward, in the genre have happened just in the last 25 years. So,
Yeah, dude, that's a great idea, man. I don't know if you know anything about making books, but if you ever are curious to know, the folks at Aqualamb, it's one of the things that they do is they put out books for every album. So they do all kinds of, they do a book for each album that any album that comes out, they do a companion piece, like in book format.
What a great idea.
So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to work with them. I've never done anything like that. So they put out this companion piece that has like all this like a broader range of like art, like that inspired the music, and all this different stuff, and QR codes, and like download things, and like lyrics and other content, all kinds of text. But just bringing it back to what you were talking about, if you need any help in that regard, I mean, I'm sure Jonathan and Eric would be happy to at least point you in the right direction when it comes to like making books, because they do it a lot.
I will 100% be hitting you up about that. I need resources and like that, exactly like that too. So with the LaMacchia record, what's the book accompaniment going to be like?
Well, the book is going to be, once again, like a lot of the time I spent during the pandemic, I spent mostly with Candice and just hanging out with her, going on, these road trips, and, going to like these like sort of like abandoned ruins and stuff. We went out to the one in Staten Island and we did a bunch of photos out there, and we just walked around and explored. Then we went to the Abercrombie Castle up in, where is that? I forget where it is in New York. It's not far from Sleepy Hollow. It's a beautiful, beautiful, like It's a beautiful ruined castle that was flooded and completely abandoned. And it's gorgeous. So that became a thing that me and her did. We would go to these places and we would do these like photo shoots and just like have fun and just like, in a way, sort of just, I guess, document our trips together and document some of the the visual aspects of what we were seeing, but also be like, hey, we were here. This is us being here. She would take pictures of me in certain rooms. I would take pictures of her. So a lot of that part of the story is going to go into the book, because it's like, that's when I was making the record, and that's, she was a huge part of, she was there with me through the whole entire damn thing. And some of the music is even about our experiences together. So, that's going to be a big part of it. And mostly my photography, though, not so much hers. And then I have like a ton of drawings that I've done throughout the years are going to go in it, which I've never put into books before. Lyrical content, text. I'm starting to write some random, like, I guess you would call it like stream of consciousness, or some kind of just like random thoughts that I have in my head that I just want to put down on paper. And then there's going to be like QR codes that will like lead you to, sort of like Easter eggs on the internet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, stuff like that. We're just going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to have a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome.
Really
I'm a huge fan of stuff like that. I mean, there's what comes to mind right away, and obviously this isn't the first thing like this, is that Jeffrey Lee Pierce Go Tell the Mountain book. It's a collection of all the Gun Club lyrics, and there's like a novella that he wrote and all this like journal stuff, and it's so interesting. I love stuff like that. Yeah,
me too, man. And these guys, these Aqualamb guys, they gave me a bunch of the books, years ago, because they became interested in me as an artist, a while ago, and they were like, look, man, if you ever want to do something, blah blah blah. So they were like, this is what we do. And their books are great. They're beautiful books. They're all the same format. They're all the same size, and they're very in that regard, they're very uniform. But if you go beyond that, like past the actual format that they put out, each one of the books is so unique to each of the the artists in the album. They're really, really great books. They're beautiful books, but they are very much like that. Like each book has like, it can be really, really different. Some of them are just very sparse, and there's just imagery and very little text. Some of them are just loaded with stories and like loaded with text and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then some of them are like, completely mixed up. But I love stuff. I really, truly do love stuff like that. So that's why I was completely like psyched to know that we were going to not only work on an album and put the album out on vinyl and CD, but also we were going to put out a book eventually. So I'm pretty psyched. Yeah, man.
Well, that's great, John. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. And thanks for taking time out to talk about the new record and all this cool stuff that's going on.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the time to call me and having me on, man.
So just in summary, let's throw out some of these release dates and the dates of this upcoming show.
Cool. Well, the album is called Thunderheads. It's coming out on May 20th through Aqualamb Records and Power Child Management. The band will be performing live April 17th, Easter Sunday. We got Frail on the bill, they're headlining, and then LaMacchia, we'll take the stage, and then we have Burning Tongue and Zeb Gould. It's an Aqualamb Presents event. So come out to the show. We're going to be doing like an Easter egg hunt. We're going to be doing some giveaways. We're just going to have a really, really good time. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, there you have it. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Everyone take care.
Take it easy, man.
Can we call it butterfly? Won't you live among us? Would you stay there for a while? In such a beautiful pose, spread your wings and open wide. Can you feel the wind blow? Drip your candy on my mind. to comatose.